Hello, my name is Beatriz McNelly, and I am thrilled to be here. We have a group in our area called Immigrant Businesswomen, which I started, and that is because I am an immigrant and a businesswoman, and I met a bunch of ladies in this area that were also immigrants. And did you know that today's immigrant women comprises one of the fastest growing business owners in the United States? And here in our area, we have a group that's Dynamo. And we have this group where we network with each other, and we support each other, and we build each other and try to help each other navigate through all the ins and outs of the business world. Today, we are thrilled to have Sabine Grant with us. She is one of the owners of LSI Media, and she also was gracious enough to make our webpage, which is stunning and beautiful, as you will hopefully have looked and seen. So Sabine, welcome.
Thank you so much, and thank you for the lovely introduction, Beatrice.
I am thrilled to have you. I know your story, and it's a good one, and it's exciting. And so I would like you to share with us where you're from and how you ended up in the U.S.
Thank you. Yes, so I'm originally from Austria, and really my entire family is still there. When I was in high school, I had this dream to come to the United States, initially as an au pair. And once I graduated school, thankfully, my parents were in a position to help me. And I was lucky enough to actually, through a teacher of mine in school, to meet a really wonderful family who was actually looking for an au pair to take with them to Washington, D.C. So very soon after I graduated from school, I followed the family here to D.C. and I worked for them for my first 2 years here in the States. And it was a little bit different than what one would normally expect from an au pair experience. I was more of a housekeeper and really a chef. They had a lot of official functions, and they really needed somebody who could cook for larger groups of people. They had a lot of dinner parties at their house, some functions at the embassy. So my experience was a little bit different than that of a normal au pair who takes care of children and is usually a nanny. So I enjoyed my time. I got to see a lot of the city, and I really fell in love and decided I wanted to stay. I would say probably after the first few months already. So it didn't take long. And for me, my upbringing was very strict, very traditional in Austria. So I think that was probably one of the reasons I was looking to have more freedom and find more freedom in my life and really be able to, figure out who I was. And one of my first jobs here in DC was with AIG Trading, and I had the pleasure of working for Sir Alan Walters. And I know it's going to date me a little bit, and some of us that know, but he actually used to be the financial advisor to Lady Margaret Thatcher. So, and it was really, he was a lovely gentleman, and it was a wonderful work experience, and something I will never forget, because when he invited me to interview for the job, he asked me to come to the Palm restaurant, and just imagine a 22-year-old young woman going for an interview at the Palm. So that was, it was quite intimidating at the time. But he was so nice and he was so kind. And I worked for him for 3 years. During that time, I met my husband here. So that really solidified me staying in the States and really not moving back to Austria. And with my husband, Idris, he had an entrepreneurial, mindset from the get-go, and it was something very foreign to me. Coming from Austria, it's very, it almost seems insurmountable to start your own business. It seems very complicated. It was never something that, really was brought up in my family as even a direction, in life. And it's, go to school and graduate and then find a good job and then work the job for the rest of your life. That's really how I grew up. Even though, funny enough, my own aunt was an entrepreneur and had her own hair salon, even in Austria. But it was really, something that my parents had never spoken about and something I knew nothing about. And here I was, 22 years old, freshly married, and my husband and I started our first business. It was in the IT field, and it was really that business that allowed us to save up money for the down payment of our first home. So, and that's really what started it. I would work for some organizations, some nonprofits and other IT organizations over the years, but in the back of my mind, I always had a business sense, and even at some point, I decided I didn't love IT as much anymore, and I decided to study massage therapy. And so I did that for a year and got my certification, got the board of nursing certification at the time that you was required to be a certified massage therapist. And I started my own business, and I did that for a while, and I networked with local spas and chiropractors, and did that for a while, but then realized really, as a business idea, I hadn't thought it through well enough. And that kind of goes back to some of the challenges as a businesswoman, as a business person, as an immigrant. You might love something, but you also have to think through and make sure that it's a viable business idea and something that you will love to do. And from my perspective, I love doing massage therapy, but I also felt it was hard work. It was physically taxing. And in order to make a viable business, I would have to employ other people. But I felt like the way that industry is and how little you would have to pay other people to do that work, it was not something that I ethically felt like I wanted to do, because there's a certain cap. And, and I realized that when massage therapists were hired, they were paid very low in order for there still to be a profit. And so I realized very quickly that was not something that I really wanted to endeavor and go into. And I felt like there should be more equity. And it just, I didn't quite see that in that type of business as much as I like the work doing it myself. So that really brought me back to the IT field, and working for companies like Terramark and Verizon. We had a liquidity event. My husband was part owner of a company that was then bought by Terramark, that was then bought by Verizon, and I was part of that acquisition. So at the end of it, we're like, okay, so what are we doing now? And we had been helping a friend who had an organization called the National Sales Association of Sales Professionals, NASP. And we started doing a lot of, it was at the beginning, of the whole website era, and where it really became strong, and the social media arena really started opening up with Facebook and other platforms. And we realized there was a lot of marketing that should be done and could be done for that organization, and that we wanted to do. And we had to work with a developer that had been with that organization for a while. And we found that person to be very inflexible and just not open to all the things that we knew that had to be done in order to grow the business. And really, out of that frustration, we started LSI Media, because we said, well, we knew there has to be flexibility, there has to be a quick turnaround, there has to be social media marketing outreach. It all has to be, one solid idea that has to work together. And I had always been artistically inclined. I always loved drawing. I always loved painting. Had been doing it, on a sort of like hobby basis most of from teenage years on. And that kind of, I realized how much enjoyment it brought me to actually work on the creative side of things, and to really get into the graphic design, to get into the web design of it. And so I really felt like I had found something that I was passionate about, that I loved doing, and that seemed to be a pretty good, business idea as well. So that's really how LSI Media was formed at this point 10 years ago. So yeah, we're coming up on a 10-year anniversary, and it's been a crazy ride. It's been a fun ride, and it's definitely been interesting. And as an entrepreneur, you end up doing a little bit of everything, right? So you have to be the person to know, like, how do I get the business started? How to form a corporation or an LLC, and then all those things. So, well, that's basically my background.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
10 years is quite exciting.
Thank you.
And I do know a little bit of your company because you are also working with Land Literacy Council and with us, and we really appreciate it. Let me ask you a question. You obviously, financially can't keep going back and forth to home. Can you tell me a little bit about your experience with homesickness and how you specifically when you finally decided, okay, I'm married, I'm here, I'm staying for good, and maybe how your family took it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was definitely, it has its challenges. We were very young when we were married, and being young, we were also very poor. So we really couldn't afford to travel to Austria a lot in the beginning. And my family, at that time, my parents are, they're still fairly young. So at that time, they were both still full-time working. So it was really challenging for them to also get away for a longer period of times. I mean, I know, again, it's going to date me, but I remember when I first stayed here and I had a little apartment, I had an efficiency apartment in downtown DC. And the biggest bill besides my rent was my phone bill, because I was the one to call my parents every week. And at the time it was expensive. I mean, I still remember back then I earned $7.50 an hour, and my $550 rent had to come out of that. And then usually my phone bill was about $150, if not more, every month. And that just left whatever little bit I had left to eat, incidentals, and that was it. And that was it for really many years, to just, there was no Skype, there were no apps, there were no smartphones at the time to communicate. It was letters, that we were writing, and it was phone calls. And at the time in Austria, it was even more expensive for my family to call me. So I really took it on most of the time to call them, because I knew it would cost them 4 or 5 times as much, per minute to call me than the other way around. So it wasn't until much, much later, that it's become a little bit easier now. Thankfully my parents are, tech savvy enough. So we usually have some frequent Skype sessions now. And in the beginning, when we have a son, Lucas, who is about to turn 18 and is a senior in high school, when he was little, I was fortunate, to have the opportunity to take him home about every couple years. So we did have his christening in Austria for him, so my family could really be part of it. And then when he was little, we also had a couple times where we were able to spend Christmas with my family. And because I really wanted him to see it, it's a bit of a different feel. And for me, Christmas always feels like it means Austria to me, and it means Christmas Eve, and and all the things that come with it, all the Christmas markets that we have there. So those are definitely things I miss over the years. That you just don't get to be there at these times, and I think what's also tough is just not being part of other life celebrations and life events that happen with the rest of the family. It's just not always possible. You miss birthdays, you miss anniversaries, I miss the birth of my great cousins, and thankfully we do have some relationship because we got to meet them, but it's years in between usually, that we get to see them. So that is really hard. And I'm sure it was very tough for my parents. Idris and I, we were so young, we eloped. And honestly, I think at the time we really didn't fully understand what that meant, and, what that would mean for our parents. And now being a parent and having a son who, who may, get in a relationship in some years and may marry, I feel the tug, if I would not be able to be there, it would be very tough. So I think, there's some decisions that you make when you're young, you just don't realize what an impact they can have on your family.
Yeah.
And it's not until later you say, wow, that was really a missed opportunity, for my parents to be with us and for us to be with them, these big life events.
Right.
It's definitely challenging.
I think you're absolutely right. But I also know that a lot of people see the U.S. as the dream place to be, and the American dream is what everybody in the world really aspires to. So I know that as hard as it is, parents are so proud of when your daughter accomplishes something like this. So you and I met through a friend, and you came to our group, and I am so pleased that you're part of our group, of course, for many, many reasons. And I just wonder if you could just take a second and tell us what your experience so far been with our group.
Oh, it's really been wonderful. I mean, I remember my first session when I joined, and because of the pandemic and all that was happening, it was a Zoom meeting, and it was just a few of the members at the time, but I instantly felt so welcome to the group, and all the ladies I've had an opportunity to meet since then are really just so wonderful, and all the different cultures, I got to be exposed to, which is really great. I mean, we have such an international mix of members, both, professionally, we have people from, as like from South America, we have Europeans, it's just all over the place, right? And it's really nice to see. And even though we all had slightly different paths of how we came here, on some levels, our stories are similar. It's just the challenges to overcome, and then just having the strength to stay and to make it work and to solve problems, that we're presented with. And I feel, fortunate, having been from Austria and with my educational background, the language wasn't as big of a challenge. And I feel like that is such a leg up that, it makes it so much more difficult, I think, for, a lot of friends I've met since then, that not only did they come to a completely different country, but they almost started at zero with having to learn the language, and having to navigate that is just incredibly challenging. And then not only that, but then also building a business on top of that. Yeah. So I have really such respect for all of our members and the businesses they have built and the families they have built, regardless of their background, and just the perseverance, really. Yes. I mean, there's ups and downs. And I know we are sitting here and we have a nice life right now, but, even for me, it was not always like this.
Right.
There's been definitely a lot of downs, in between.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and doubting yourself and things like that. Yeah. Okay, well, thank you so much for sharing your story with us, and we are just so thrilled to have you in the group. You're wonderful, and I want everybody to check out our webpage, because there'll be lots of information about LSI media, and I recommend them highly. They're wonderful. Thank you so much, Sabina.
Thank you so much, Beatrice. I really appreciate it. Thank you.